Welcome to my part 2 video and my final video on cells. So in the previous video we looked at the similarities and the differences between an animal cell and a plant cell. This one, the simple structure of an animal cell. So in this video we are going to discuss now the more detailed structure of a plant cell and an animal cell and their function. So basically when we look at these two diagrams, we can see that we have an animal cell and a plant cell. So we can see that we have an animal cell and what? A plant cell. So our first structure which we are going to discuss is from the simple structure. What is it? This structure, and also here this green part, which is known as the cell membrane. So the first part we need to look at under a plant and an animal cell is the cell membrane. So what is the cell membrane? So when we talk about a cell membrane, we are saying that a cell membrane is the part. So what is a cell membrane? So here the first part is the cell membrane. So when we talk about the cell membrane, we are saying that this is the part which is responsible for controlling substances. So it is responsible for controlling substances that enters and leaves the cell. So this cell membrane is very selective. What do we mean it is very selective? So when I say it is very selective, I mean that it only allows certain substances to cross and does not allow other substances to cross. So if it does not allow certain substances to cross, what are those substances which does not cross, and what are those substances which crosses the cell membrane? So the substances that crosses, we have number 1, water. Then we also have what? Gases. So gases can be oxygen or carbon dioxide. We know that we breathe in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide. So these substances crosses the cell membrane because they are too small. Then when we talk about substances that do not cross, so when we talk about substances that do not cross, we are talking about substances like urea. So when we talk about substances that do not cross, we are talking about urea. So urea does not cross the what? The cell membrane because it is a large molecule. So this is the function of the cell membrane. So I've talked about one structure of the cell. So next we are going to look at the cytoplasm. So what is the cytoplasm? So the cytoplasm now is this part. So this entire part is what is known as the cytoplasm. So this part is filled with what? Fluid. So we say that both have what? The cytoplasm. So I said we'll start with the simple structures, then we will keep on building up. So we say that this structure is known as the cytoplasm. So now we know that this is the cytoplasm. Now what is its function? So the function of the cytoplasm is to what? The cytoplasm contains all the cell structures called organelles, and it is where cell activities occurs. So the function of the cytoplasm, what is the function of the cytoplasm? So the function of the cytoplasm, we say that it houses what? So the cytoplasm houses the organelles or structures, and this is where what? So it has what? Organelles and these structures, and this is where cell activity occurs. Yeah. So you need to understand that the cytoplasm, its function is basically to provide a site where what? Activities occurs. And you need to know that when we combine the three, they like asking this question. When we combine the cytoplasm, the cell membrane, and what? The nucleus. These three are known as protoplasm. So yeah, they like bringing what? This question. What is the protoplasm? So the protoplasm, this is the living part of the cell. Living part of the cell. Yeah. And the living part of the cell only contains the cytoplasm, cell membrane, and what? The nucleus. Yeah. So you need to know these terms. So next we are going to talk about the mitochondria. So what is the mitochondria? And remember, when you talk about similarities, now we are starting to add details. So a mitochondria, this you can see it only on a detailed structure of an animal cell and a plant cell. And this is another similarities between an animal cell and a plant cell. Remember, there are a lot of similarities. Yeah. So we say that a mitochondria looks like a sausage. So when you see a sausage-like structure, like this one, in an animal cell, and this one, this is known as the mitochondria. Yeah. So when it's One, it is known as mitochondrion, like this. Then when there are two, they are known as mitochondria. So mitochondria is the plural. It is a sausage-like structure. This one which you can see, and this one is also the mitochondria. Now what is the function of the mitochondria? So the mitochondria, this is where respiration takes place. So you can just say this is where respiration takes place. This is where respiration takes place. And for this reason, it is known as the powerhouse. So in case they ask you again, why is the mitochondria known as the powerhouse of the cell? This is because this is where respiration takes place. So the next structure we're going to look at is the nucleus. So what is the nucleus? And what is the function of the nucleus? So when we talk about the nucleus, how can you identify the nucleus on the diagram? So the nucleus is this part. So whenever you see dotted like structure surrounding something, just know that that is the nucleus. So this small part is what is known as the nucleus. Even here, this part is known as the nucleus. Yeah, so now that you have seen how the nucleus looks like on the diagram, we can now discuss the function of the nucleus. So what is the function of the nucleus? So the nucleus, this is responsible for controlling one, cell activities. So whatever is happening inside the cell is controlled by the nucleus. That is the first function. Then the second function is it stores genetic information. Yeah, so these are the two functions of the nucleus. The first one is it controls cell activities. Then the second one is it stores genetic information. So we have discussed four structures of what? A cell. Yeah. So there are a lot of structures which we are going to discuss in this video. So you need to revise or rewatch this video so that you understand, because I know you won't understand everything just by watching one video. So you need to be rewatching the video. So the next structure we are going to discuss is the chlorophyll. So we are discussing the what? The simple structures of an animal cell and a plant cell. So the next structure or the next function we are going to discuss is the chloroplast. So what is the function of the chloroplast? So remember, the chloroplast is only present in the what? In an animal cell. So if you can look at this detailed structure, you can see that we have these big balls that are round. So these are known as chloroplast. Yeah, this contains chlorophyll. So in some case, we can paint them with green to show that they contain what? Chlorophyll. Yeah. So these are what are known as chloroplasts. Then when you look at a simple structure, you can see that these things, so you have to differentiate it from the nucleus. So these things are what are known as chloroplasts. So now you have seen what chloroplast looks like. We are going to look at the function of chloroplast. So what is the function of chloroplast? So chloroplast is where photosynthesis takes place. So I've talked about two things. We have talked about where respiration takes place, and we have also talked about now where photosynthesis takes place. So photosynthesis takes place in chloroplast. So this is where photosynthesis takes place. And for this reason, it what contains chlorophyll. Yeah. So we have talked about two structures. The mitochondria. Remember, the mitochondria is present in both the cell, the animal cell, and the plant cell. But chloroplast is only present in a plant cell. Why? Because chlorophyll is responsible for absorbing energy or absorbing light. Yeah, so this is how you should be understanding biology. So you start from the beginning. What is the chloroplast? This is where photosynthesis takes place. Yeah, because this is where photosynthesis takes place, it has to contain what? Chlorophyll, which traps light for what? For photosynthesis to take place. Then the next structure which we are going to discuss is the vacuum. So this large structure here, which you can see in a plant cell, is known as the vacuum. Yeah. So normally it is not present in animal what? Animal structure, but in some it can be present. Yeah, but normally you need to know that the vacuum is absent in animal cell. So what is the function of the vacuum now? So you say vac, the function. Yeah. So this part is filled with fluid. As I told you, it is filled with fluid, and this fluid is sugar and salt and water. Yeah, so this is where a plant cell basically stores sugar, which it manufactures from what? Photosynthesis. So after manufacturing sugar from photosynthesis, it stores it in a vacuum. Then this concentration inside the vacuum now, the function, it allows the movement of water. In and out of the cell. Yeah. So, because the vacuum is filled with sugar and salt, which makes it more concentrated, it allows now the movement of water outside the cell. Yeah. So this is the function of the vacuum. So I've discussed the cell membrane, the nucleus. So I've discussed the cell membrane, cytoplasm, mitochondria, nucleus, chloroplast, and you have also looked at the vacuum. So now moving on to the more detailed structures. So here is where now you need to pay attention. So the first detailed structure which you are going to look at are these round shapes. What are those? So these small dots, yeah, remember these small dots, so when you compare these small dots with the chloroplast, you know that the chloroplasts are larger but these ones are smaller. So these small dots are known as the ribosomes. So ribosomes, these are small round structures, as you can see. This is where protein synthesis takes place. So ribosome, this is where protein synthesis takes place. Yeah, so when we talk about ribosomes, we are saying that this is where protein synthesis takes place. What do we mean? The manufacturing or the production of proteins is done in the ribosomes. Yeah. So whilst talking about ribosomes, we can move on to our next structure, which is connected with the ribosomes. We have the endoplasmic reticulum. So the endoplasmic reticulum, this is responsible for transporting what? So the endoplasmic reticulum is responsible for transporting substances within the cytoplasm. Transporting substances within the cytoplasm. Yeah. So when we go back to our diagram, we can see that we have two things which are known as endoplasmic. We have the first one here, which is known as the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Then we also have this one, which is known as the rough endoplasmic reticulum. I know these words are sounding new, but you'll get used to them. So these are the two types of endoplasmic reticulum. So from your understanding, we said that the endoplasmic reticulum is responsible for what? For transporting what? Substances within the cytoplasm. So meaning if we have two types of endoplasmic reticulum, meaning one is responsible for transporting different substances and the other. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the rough. Why is it called rough? Because it has ribosomes attached to it. Yeah. Then when we talk about smooth endoplasmic reticulum, So smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not have the ribosomes. So what does this mean? So the rough endoplasmic reticulum is responsible for transporting proteins. So this one is simple because it has ribosomes, and we say that in ribosomes that's where what protein synthesis takes place. So meaning the rough endoplasmic reticulum will transport what? Proteins. Then when you talk about smooth, think of something which is smooth, something like oily. So meaning the smooth endoplasmic reticulum